Well, threw you a curveball there, Theo. you had to throw me off a little bit. Throwing me off a little bit, Billy. Welcome. Welcome everyone to another episode of First Class Fantasy. I'm stoked to be in here today. We have another first class guest. It's our second guest of all time, Derek Brown of Fantasy Pros. Dbro, we're stoked to have you in here. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing good, boys. You know, early best ball streets, trying to get my chops. Everything's going good. People are still making dumb decisions in drafts. So things you love to see, especially on a Wednesday. But how are you guys?
Doing great. Just been working on projections quietly in the background, getting the model situated. We are ready to
Billy's working on projection models, and Theo's over there doing Theo power cleans in between podcasts these days.
Occasionally, I sneak in a couple of cleans there, Dbro. You know how it is. You know how it is.
And look, I know.
Billy's in the lab coding. He's putting together projections. He's modeling. I mean, you name it. That's what Billy's doing.
The model. I mean, just things that have to happen, man.
And Billy, we're not talking about underwear models. We're talking about football models here. Just to clarify, everybody.
We did talk about underwear models before we went live here. Billy might venture into that. We'll see. Depends on the size of the trophy.
Yes.
and Billy, you may or may not have a flex.
We're already off the rails, man. We ain't even started. There we go, baby. FP, let's go.
Billy, that's an impressive trophy. What did you do to earn that trophy?
Top 5 finish at the Fantasy Pros ranking competition for 2022 in-season rankings. Pretty excited.
That the size of that trophy doesn't look like you're trying to compensate for anything at all, Billy.
No, it's definitely fits. It all coincides.
100%. That's a fantastic flex, Billy. You gotta make that like very visible. Maybe even prop it up so people see it like right behind your head for the entire season when you're podcasting. Dbro, you actually had a pretty good flex. You basically gave the world Christian Watson. You're one of the first people. You're one of the first people to really hype him. I'll give you props for that because you came on the Goat District podcast with me and JD and Dan right after the Senior Bowl last year, and you got a chance to talk up Christian Watson about how sure you were that he was going to hit. You ranked him aggressively, took a little flack for that, and it came absolutely true. So we're going to get a chance to talk about Christian Watson later on in the show. But whatever Dbro tells you this time of year, circle it, write it in pen, because the guy ran very, very pure last offseason. Want to ask you guys all a question with this fun little news coming out of San Francisco. Who is the San Francisco 49ers starting quarterback on day one of the NFL season? Dbro, we'll start with you.
Man, I think it's going to be Trey Lance. I think as long as he's healthy and he doesn't face plant in camp, I think it's going to be him. I don't think Purdy is even in the conversation because I don't think he's going to be healthy to start week 1, considering building up arm strength and stuff. And I could be a little bit off on the timeline, but if they have any kind of like hopes, dreams, thoughts about Purdy being the long-term answer, they're not going to push him back fast. So I think it's going to be Lance. I mean, it depends on what narrative do you want to craft for this. Like, he plays good in camp. The 49ers say, look, like, we do need to find out if all the equity we put into the draft to get Trey Lance is worth it or not. So he's really going to have to, like, lose that job for Sam Darnold to sit here and get snaps over in week 1.
Yeah, I'll answer this first because Billy's going to go deep on this one. He is our 49ers expert on the show. I'll agree with you. It's going to be Trey Lance. The Trey Lance hate might have gone a little bit too far. I think that his chances of starting on day 1 are a lot stronger than maybe some people think. But I'm going to pass it over to you, Billy. Your thoughts on day 1, and maybe I'll give a second question to you, Billy. Who has the most starts for the San Francisco 49ers quarterbacks next year?
That's the key, right? And I think that it's pretty clear and evident that Lance is the starter week 1. Derek was spot on. It's the injury to Purdy. I think if we had no injury and they just lost or won the championship game, I think that regardless of that outcome, today would be Brock Purdy starting because of what he has done down the stretch. Purdy was really good. And so to answer your question here, Lance will start week 1. Purdy will have the most starts given that his health timeline is going to be met and he's not going to have any setbacks. If he hits all of his targets and he's able to get throwing by camp and they don't want to rush him in, I think that throwing by camp is aggressive. I think it'll probably be closer towards week 1, quite frankly. But if that everything's said and done, if healthy, Purdy is the starter in my opinion. Lance probably starts week 1 as they're going to ease Purdy into things. They don't want to rush him, get him back and risk further injury with that elbow. But for most starts in the season, I have it projected right now as Purdy. And when you take a look at kind of the metrics, and you have to reduce the qualified because Purdy only had 5 starts. He was in 6 full games, but he was in 9 for qualifying. But taking the snaps down to 350 snaps, looking specifically at weeks 14 through 18, he finished 8th in completion percentage. And this is for the entire season. Like if you include his 9 actual games, but 350 snaps minimum for criteria for qualified here. He finished 8th in completion percentage, only behind Geno Smith, Burrow, Herbert, Stafford, Jimmy G, Daniel Jones, and Mahomes. He was number 1 in touchdown rate in all qualified quarterbacks at 7.6%. He finished ahead of Patrick Mahomes at 6.3%. He finished ahead of Josh Allen at 6.1%, ahead of Burrow at 5.9%, and ahead of Prescott at 5.8%. He was number 2 in pressure completion percentage at 55.8%, only behind Herbert at 57.1%. He was 7th in true passer rating at 94.81%, and he finished number 1 in the league in red zone completion percentage. There's a lot to like about Brock Purdy. I know he's a system quarterback, but that's exactly what the Niners need, is someone just to be able to run this West Coast offense for Shanahan.
Dbro, anything to add on the most starts?
Yeah, I guess so. What I was curious about, Billy, is okay. So, like the story that you're telling with the projections, is it Trey Lance loses the job or Purdy gets the job as soon as he's healthy? Like they just flip it over. Like what's the storyline that you're telling with the projections there? Because for the pushback is okay. So Lance starts week 1. If he plays well, are they just going to hand the job over to Purdy? That's the part that I have the problem with, I guess.
So for me, it's the locker room. I think Purdy's won the locker room, and I think the selling point, and Lynch kind of echoed those sentiments at the owners meeting on Monday was, and everyone saw the quote that Purdy has the locker room. He's the leader in the locker room. I think that is safe to say that is accurate moving forward. And we even heard players come out after the championship game saying that if Purdy wasn't the starter, there'd be some pretty upset people inside the locker room for the 49ers. There's a lot that has been invested inside Trey Lance. Niners are quick to cut losses, though. And I think that it's safe to say that as of right now, the only reason why they haven't cut the loss is because of the injury. Now, I think that they give Lance every opportunity to succeed these first couple weeks. Mm-hmm. And if he takes off with the job and runs with it, he probably keeps it because of the equity that they have inside of the draft capital.
And so that's where I'm at. Where I'm at.
He would have to, in my opinion, have a Justin Fields down the stretch run, right? Massive rushing upside, but also throwing the ball. So in my opinion, the expectations for him that are going to be set in order for him to hold that job are going to be extremely high. I just read all these stats in which Purdy excelled in. Mm-hmm. We're going to need to see Trey Lance hit on all those metrics as well as the rushing upside to hold that job from Purdy. And if they come out, let's just say it's week 4. If they come out and they're 2-2, I would say that's Purdy's job. If they come out and they're 3-1, they probably let Lance keep this and roll forward. 4-0, 3-1, it's probably Lance's job. Anything under 3-1, I think that they roll that, and that's just assuming it's 4 weeks. They roll that over to Purdy, in my opinion.
And so, I'll piggyback on that. I agree with you that I think Trey Lance has to come out and be proficient. If he's
almost
not
perfect.
Well, and here's the other thing, and I'll push back on some of the Purdy love a little bit. In that I don't care if anybody's a system quarterback. Like everybody's a system quarterback. Like smart coaches build systems around quarterbacks. It's not square peg meets round hole. That's what dumbass coaches do. So the fact that he's a system quarterback, I'm not knocking him for that. The whole thing about it, but with Brock Purdy, everything that you stated, Billy, is totally spot on. The other thing about that, and this illuminates to him being a point guard and not a playmaker, is that he had the 6th lowest big time throw rate last year. So with that, he operated perfectly inside of the system, like quick decisions, let his playmakers do exactly what he's supposed to, and he was accurate with it. Okay. And that's all San Francisco kind of wants out of the position. Where Lance, I think, can differentiate himself, and he's going to have to, I agree with you, he's going to have to play extremely efficient. He's going to have to show this coaching staff that he can get through his reads, make plays. But he is where I see that if he is able to hold on to this job, is he is able to prove to them that he can do something that Brock Purdy cannot, and that is be a playmaker and create big splash plays while playing efficient and be able to play outside of structure, which is not something that like San Francisco has asked Brock Purdy to do. He's shown that he can do it, or he will do it. And so I think I agree with you that Lance has to come out and play extremely damn good football. But the way that he keeps that job is he's able to show them that not only can I play efficiently, but I can add another layer to this offense that Brock Purdy cannot.
Yeah, so it's very interesting that you mentioned this, because I think you hit you're spot on. The only thing is that is completely contrary to the West Coast offense. The West Coast offense is designed for short, quick, intermediate throws. Get the ball out, get it in your playmakers' hands, let them get yards after the catch. That's why Dbro does well. We got Christian McCaffrey. You know, a good tight end is good in that regard as well. You have Ayuk who's doing his thing down the rest of the field. The West Coast offense is not needed to have those big splash plays. But in order for Lance to keep the job, he's going to need to do everything in the West Coast offense that Purdy did, plus more, is what you just mentioned. Yeah. And I completely agree with that.
So
and he has the arm to do it.
Is that my whole thing about, and I don't disagree with you. Yes, you outlined it perfectly about the West Coast offense. My whole thing is like, if they wanted that type of quarterback, then why the hell did you draft Trey Lance to begin with? Like,
I think they got scared of the media. They wanted they wanted Mac Jones.
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
They did, and they got scared.
They got scared. They got scared.
Worse. Now, I think one more sentiment before we wrap up the West Coast offense, the Niners. Do you know who else was a system quarterback in the West Coast offense? Joe Montana. Joe Montana played in the revolutionary Bill Walsh offense, which was the first West Coast offense in the NFL. He excelled in it. I'm not saying, I don't want anyone to misquote me here. I'm not saying Brock Purdy is Joe Montana, but I'm saying that he can run the West Coast offense. And that's all Shanahan needs. They don't need someone to come out here and make splash plays. Yes, it's nice. From a fantasy perspective, we love it. From an NFL standpoint and perspective, all they need someone to do is run that offense.
Yep. This is a great subject. I wish we had more time for it today. I will say that it's an interesting conundrum, because if Trey Lance starts, he's a guy that we're going to find in our fantasy lineups in a single quarterback league. But if Brock Purdy starts, we like that a lot more for the very exciting San Francisco skill position weapons. So I think for our Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Debo Samuel, and George Kittle shares, I think I would prefer Purdy. I think it'll be more predictable. You know, you won't have to worry about him running for 2 or 3 touchdowns in a game. So it's an interesting one for us fantasy players. I think it's almost a better fantasy outcome if it is Purdy. And I'll say just a quick response is, why did they draft Lance at 3 overall? I think that the market really overreacted looking for the next Lamar Jackson. I think it was right after the Lamar Jackson season. And we saw that in 2019, his breakout year. Another player who had a fantastic breakout season in 2019 was Darren Waller. Darren Waller was a guy that
Theo, this is the Purdy show. We're going to continue Purdy.
we are completely guys. We are moving on. We are moving on from San Francisco. This is a great subject matter. And definitely you can also listen into Sonic Truth Dynasty podcast to hear the Podfather's thoughts on Trey Lance from a dynasty perspective. That was a great show earlier this week. But another player that we really want to touch on is Darren Waller. Dbro, you are all in on Darren Waller. Billy and I are both bullish on him, and we shared our thoughts on pretty much every single tight end that's fantasy relevant this season last week on First Class Fantasy. But I want to hear what you have to say about Darren Waller and why you are so stoked for him.
I don't understand why this is controversial. I put this out on Twitter and everybody's like, oh, well, good luck with that. And I'm like, people's certainty and their idea that they can effectively predict injuries is absolutely asinine. And it's every year. Everybody's, I mean, you could basically every single year just craft, okay, this guy, if he performs, nobody's going to like him. But if he performs, he's going to be a value, because people get so butthurt about like players that are hurt or don't play up to performance that the next year they don't want to draft him. And this is all absolute ridiculous, stupid recency bias with Darren Waller. It's one season, guys. One season where he was parked on the bench, and we could say, okay, some of this was contract. Yes, he was injured, but he was out for a long time. We don't know everything that happened in that Raiders locker room, considering everybody that came out in the media. Dude, Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, Derek Carr was out there talking about like something's amiss. And with Darren Waller, I don't understand why it's controversial to sit here and say, okay, he's my tight end too. He's a top 3 at worst tight end. I don't understand why that's so damn controversial for a guy that last year, he was top 12 in both PFF receiving grade and yards per route run. He didn't have the target share, but the Raiders were doing dumb things with that offense the entire freaking season. Carr was struggling all the way through it. And this is a player that we have seen legitimately lead all tight ends in targets. He's 30 freaking years old. So as much as people want to pile on, okay, it's the injuries. Travis Kelce is out here proving again that as you age, if your efficiency metrics stay high and you've shown that you have not fallen off the cliff, why are we not willing to invest in that? It's like having a discount Travis Kelce in the sense that this is a guy that could lead all tight ends in targets. He has already shown us the ability to produce elite numbers at the tight end position. And oh, guess what? He's now been airdropped into a situation where even if the Giants take a first-round wide receiver, I don't freaking care. He still has shown he can earn targets at an elite level. And now he's getting airdropped into a position where they're basically asking him to do that. He's going to operate as their number 1 wide receiver in that offense, period. I don't understand why this is hard for people to understand, but apparently it is, because he's going in best ball drafts as tight end 7 and tight end 8, tight end 6, outside the top 5. And it makes no damn sense to me.
Well, Billy and I, one thing we touched on last week with the tight end episode is it's difficult to find tight ends who will lead their team in targets. And I think right now you hit the nail on the head that Darren Waller has that path to leading the Giants in targets. There's maybe a handful of wide receivers that I think could cut into it if they draft from the first round, but I think him getting over 100 targets is a safe bet. And I think once you get over that 100-yard that 100 target mark, start creeping into those 120s and you get those truly elite tight end seasons. Waller has 2 seasons with over 90 receptions, and he has 3 seasons where he's top 5 in tight end point per game. So, Billy, anything to add on Darren Waller?
Yeah, I like Waller too. I have him at 6 right now. I have him just slightly ahead of Pat Freiermuth. I do have him behind Goddard, Kittle, Hawkinson, Andrews, Kelce. I like the fact that he's going to step into an immediate role. He's probably going to be the number 1 in this offense in target share. At least that's how I have it projected for right now. I have him projected for exactly 100 targets. The problem is, and the only thing that we're going to run into is just the volume of pass plays that we see from the New York Giants versus other teams. So, for instance, Minnesota, let's use TJ Hawkinson, for example, who's my tight end 3. Minnesota throws the ball, at least last year in 2022, 64.38% of the time, where someone like the Giants last year only threw the ball 52.85% of the time. So in a season-long projections, when I looked at the model and I used, we used what's called X pass attempts, so expected pass attempts, combining years and looking at efficiencies. Minnesota, for instance, this year, I have projected for 630.8 pass attempts. The New York Giants, I have projected for 554.3 pass attempts. So well under 100 more or less pass attempts. When you look at that and break it down percentage wise, like let's just call it 20%, that's 20 more targets alone for TJ Hawkinson just using that 100 targets. And so I think that it's safe to say that Waller will have a significant role. He'll be the number 1 in this offense. What does that look like is my question. What does this offense look like? We saw them re-sign Saquon Barkley. They're committed to the run. Daniel Jones also likes to run. They have this hodgepodge receiver core, so it's safe to say that Waller is the number one option.
Mhm.
But what does 20% target share look like? What does 21% target share looks like? That's more like 100, 105 targets max, in my opinion, where someone like Hawkinson or someone like Kelsey is going to see upwards of 130 to 150. And you can throw in a couple other names in there as well, like Mark Andrews. So I think that's where the disconnect is from maybe the consensus, or I should say, a lot of rankers and projectors look at this and say, Waller has the skills to still be an elite tight end. In terms of tight end youth, he's still young. He's not 37, 40 like some of these tight ends get to. It takes tight ends a long time to get to that maturity and that growth. It's like a fine wine, right? You just got to sit and mature and become, elite. Waller still has that in him. I think the days of him, though, being 1, 2, 3 are probably gone. I think he still has the skills to get there. I just don't think the Giants pass enough for him to actually hit that number this year.
So the pushback on that, Billy, and I'm totally with you. I look at play volumes and offensive trends. I think it's twofold. One, the Giants started off the year, they had massive injuries. They had nobody to depend on. Wandell was in and out of the lineup. Darius Slayton wasn't even a full-time player. It was literally just Daniel Jones handed off to Saquon for the first few weeks of the season, or throw to your first read. And if that's not there, take off running. Where I think that we're going to get more volume out of this passing attack is, one, Daboll showed that he's willing to sit here and open up the offense whenever, one, the matchup dictates, two, Daniel Jones is playing well, or they have better receiving options. Because if you look at weeks 12 through 18 last year, to close out the season. So, we're looking at a 7-game sample. So almost half the season. The Giants were 12th in neutral script passing rate. So I think with better weapons around them, they brought in it might not look sexy, but it's a hodgepodge of guys that are NFL caliber talent. Versus last year, it's Isaiah Hodgins, it's Richie James, it's Darius Slayton. Now you add into an offense of, okay, they got Barkley back. We have Waller. They have a lot of those other parts of pieces, but they brought new ones in. And if they go wide receiver in round 1, now they're kind of equipped where they can throw the ball more because they actually have NFL talent. And we saw them in a small, almost a half season stretch where they showed us that they're willing to do that down the back half of it. So that's where I think we're different on volume expectations for him, where I can see an easier path for him to get to that 130, 140 targets.
Yeah, and it's, the last time we saw a Brian Daboll coached offense trade for a receiver, a big-time receiver, it was Stephon Diggs. And Waller is interesting because we've never seen Daboll with a move tight end like this. And I think that they're going to line him up all over the field and kind of find creative ways to get him the ball. And Billy, we talking a lot about tight ends. It's making me think about tight end premium scoring and our friends over at the FFPC.
Gotta love the tight end premium out of FFPC. Darren Waller's ADP right now is 67.9 inside that format. Why don't you stick around? We're gonna get a quick read over here from the Podfather talking about why you should be playing over at the FFPC.
People always ask me, hey, what is the World Series of fantasy or the Super Bowl of fantasy football? And it's easy. It's the FFPC, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. It's a $6 million prize pool. And they've had their Never Too Early Best Ball leagues cranking since February. And so the FFPC is the answer to so many questions. Hey, where's the best place to get a Dynasty Orphan? Well, you can adopt a Dynasty Orphan at the FFPC. That's why we partner with them. If you want to play fantasy football for low, medium, high stakes, seasonal, best ball, dynasty, go to the FFPC. And don't forget, promo code Underworld gets you $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team, no matter what team it is, no matter what format it is, at the FFPC. Go do it.
You know what that sound is, Theo? That's saying that Darren Waller has taken off back into the top end of the rankings and potentially into the top of the tight end spot. But let's keep moving on.
So, guys, we've seen a ton of movement at the running back position through free agency. We're also going to see a lot of shakeup at the NFL draft. But concentrating on these free agents, before we talk about the players that landed, we have a number of guys just sitting out here in free agency limbo. Which player are you most confident lands well, if any of them, between Kareem Hunt, Zeke Elliott, Lenny Fournette, and Jerick McKinnon? I'll start out with you, Dbro, on this. Do any of these guys, are you bullish on any of these four?
Hell no. I'm not bullish on any of them. This is a grab bag of aging and inefficient running backs. And yes, I'm even adding Kareem Hunt into that. His efficiency metrics, tackle breaking, everything dropped off a damn map last year. So everybody that's like, why is Kareem Hunt not getting any more work last year in Cleveland? That's because he sucked. So no, you can miss me with all these dudes. No. Mm-mm.
Billy Muzio.
The only one for me I'd be really interested in is, I'm interested in two, maybe three, depending upon landing spots. Let's start with just the landing spots. If Fournette and Zeke land in the right spot, high efficiency offense, a lot of goal line touches, they would be fantasy relevant from a flex perspective. We're talking about like a LeGarrette Blount type situation where all they do is fall into the end zone. That would be the only situation in which I have any interest in those two players outside of best ball. Looking at Kareem Hunt, I know his efficiencies fell off the deep end. I think a lot of it was also just his buy-in to the Cleveland Browns. He wanted to be traded, requested a trade, didn't get the trade. You look at that from a mentality standpoint, and I don't think that he gave it his all. I don't think that he wanted to continue to play for them. Therefore, I think that he just didn't care. And when you don't care, you don't produce. And I think that we can say that with Kareem Hunt, because when he has been given the workload and he has proven to be caring about his position and what he's doing, he has been pretty efficient in the past. I'm going to kind of chop up the last year to him wanting to be out. And maybe it's wrong, but this is where I kind of remove the analytics from the situation and try to look at it from a human element and say, if I was in his shoes and I didn't want to play for this team, would I really want to play for this coach? Would I give it my all? Would I want to get injured going into a contract year? The answer is no, probably. I'd want to protect myself. I'd want to make sure that I'm healthy. I'd want to make sure that I can give my best to the next team. Probably hurt him in the long run, and probably from a money standpoint, would be able to secure that contract. But at least now he gives himself the opportunity to step into position healthy. I think if he lands in the right area, like if he lands, in my opinion, I was hoping it was going to be Miami. It's not looking like it's going to be Miami. So, but he can still land at some spots that are pretty fantasy friendly. Like I could see him being very successful inside of Atlanta, right? I could see him being very successful with the Bears even. Not as needed now with Foreman there and Herbert still there, but there's some situations where I think that his skill set could be highly desired by an NFL team. Like if we found out today that he signed with Arizona, I would say that'd be a perfect compliment to James Conner, right?
Billy, what if he goes to Philly? They only have Rashad Penny.
If he goes to Philly, I mean, not as high because I love the offensive line, so I'm gonna start there, but they always use a 3-man rotation. Now they're going to probably have a 4-man rotation if they have him in the mix, because we already know Penny's going to be healthy for about a month, but that month there's going to be 4 backs. Then you have Gainwell, you still have Boston Scott. We saw them involve both those backs when they had Miles Sanders there as well, who was younger and more durable. If you throw in him into that equation, now you still have Gainwell, you still have Boston Scott, who they utilize in the red zone. So it's going to limit his upside from an efficiency standpoint from red zone touches. And it's going to reduce his efficiency from a receiving perspective because Gainwell is highly effective in that regard as well. So I don't think that would be a good fit. Love the offensive line, maybe what he's able to get on the ground, but I think would limit his upside.
I think that the one name that nobody's talking about is Jerick McKinnon, who we just saw crush it to end the season last year for Kansas City. I think if he can survive Kansas City not drafting a like-for-like replacement type back in the NFL draft, or adding, a potential target hog receiver and the offense slightly changes, I think McKinnon it'll have the same path as last season where he signed for a cheap deal, a team-friendly deal to Kansas City, and he falls right back into his role. Whether or not Pacheco takes the next step would be, irrelevant because McKinnon is so effective catching the ball out of the backfield. I think for the other 3 guys, I'd almost prefer that they sit back and have whoever gets injured in the preseason go and take that job and they could have a Devonta Freeman like path where we saw him land in Baltimore and have a number of starts where he was like a high-end RB3. I think that would be kind of the best fantasy outcome for these guys. All of them, all of the non-McKinnon backs, certainly are getting a little less efficient. They're getting a little bit older. And I think that the only benefit, if you're like a dynasty manager hanging on to one of these guys, is the fact that they'll be able to kind of pick and choose their landing spot at this point based on injuries.
Yeah, I mean, I think like looking at all these guys, the thing that hurts all of them, and outside of the age cropping up and declining efficiency metrics, the other thing that hurts all these guys, and the other reason I'm not in on them, is that like we've got a deep running back class, like where a lot of these teams could just say, I mean, screw it. Like, why am I going to sign a Zeke or Hunt or whoever to like even like by rookie standards, like a bloated contract versus drafting a guy in the 4th or 5th round, paying him rookie wages, and we're not investing anything, and he's got more juice left in his legs, So that's what I think hurts. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if all these guys like are just sitting out there for the entire season. Like, I would not be surprised if Zeke, Lenny, all of them just don't get signed. That would not shock me at all. And the only pushback I'll have, Billy, about your soliloquy about Kareem Hunt is, didn't we do a little bit of that dance about being unmotivated about Allen Robinson last year? I know it's a different position.
Yes.
But everybody was like, well, he didn't give a shit about being in Chicago. He didn't care about that. Didn't like the coach. No. And then he goes to Los Angeles and he's like, well, no, it's because he's bad. Like,
yeah, definitely wasn't efficient. I think definitely the same conversation, although you look at where Hunt has been successful. And I think that with running back, you still have the option of scoring pretty easily once you're in the red zone, right? Where a receiver has to beat the cornerback, has to be able to contest catches. I think that cliff comes off pretty quick, and the running back cliff does as well. But I'm saying that you could still be old, fat, slow, and inefficient and still score touchdowns. Like prime example was Legarrette Blount that year,
or right? Ezekiel Elliott last year. And so a lot of these guys still have touchdown upside, right? And I don't think they're going to sit around the season on free agency. I think if we do see a late signing, it'll be camp with injuries, because every year we see it, right? We see an injury pop up. Look at the Ravens, right? They lost back after back after back last year. And so we see something like that happens. One of these guys will be signed if they're not signed already.
There was a viral picture of Nick Sirianni showing some love to Kareem Hunt on the sideline, that people started talking about Hunt as a potential trade candidate for them around the trade deadline. So that would be kind of an interesting one. If Sirianni can get one of these guys for like a veteran's minimum, I think that would be something they might not pass up, and just kind of throw them all out there and see what happens. We did have some running backs who landed, and a number of running backs who landed pretty well. You can really sit back and kind of paint yourself a picture that one of these guys is going to have a big fantasy season, and maybe a couple of them are successful guys that, with running back 2 potential. Dbro, who is your favorite of the running backs who signed?
I mean, I'm just going to go old tried and true David Montgomery. I think his landing spot, and it's not just, okay, we saw this last year, but I mean, crap, we saw it last year. Like, I mean, and I'm not sitting here saying that he is going to score as many freaking touchdowns as Jamal Williams did. No, I'm not chasing touchdown expectations, because that's just a bad game to play anyway. Touchdowns are fluky. And so how many you score does not really matter to me, in the sense of like, what do I really care about is the fact that I think that he puts DeAndre Swift's butt on the bench. I think David Montgomery offers them the ability to be multiple on offense. Like last year it was like, okay, Jamal Williams is on the field. Okay, they're probably not throwing the ball. If they do throw the ball, Jamal Williams is not going to be part of that. DeAndre Swift is on the field. Okay, what are they going to do? They're probably throwing the ball. He's not going to run the ball. That type of linear, like that one side of the coin ability for running backs makes your offense is extremely predictable. What David Montgomery can do is he offers pass game utility. He is and I'm not saying he's as good of a receiver as DeAndre Swift, but he is damn good enough to sit here and eat into his pass game routes and honestly not come off the field. He could easily get like a 70%, 75% opportunity share, because he could pass block, he could run routes, and If he does that inside of the context of this offense, behind that offensive line, who they were top 5 in red zone scoring opportunities per game, like I will have a ton of David Montgomery this year. And I mean, right now we're doing, I mean, I'd have to go look and see where his FFPC ADP is, but I sure as hell can tell you on Underdog, him and DeAndre Swift's ADPs are ridiculously inefficient. They are going to flip eventually. Like DeAndre Swift is a top 20 running back. David Montgomery's an RB3. That will flip once we get a little bit more narratives or people wake the hell up. I love David Montgomery this year.
Inside the rankings over at Player Profiler, I have him back-to-back. Running back 24, David Montgomery, Swift 25. FFPC ADP, which you can find actually inside the rankings. We have a column now over at Player Profiler for the FFPC rankings. ADP right now, David Montgomery 75.4, DeAndre Swift is 64.1. So the gap is definitely closing, and we're starting to see, and I'm seeing in draft rooms right now, David Montgomery start to go ahead of DeAndre Swift.
Mm-hmm. It's going to flip.
And we're seeing that gap definitely close. I like that as well. David Montgomery and I've never been a huge David Montgomery stan, but let's face it, he's a better back than Jamal Williams. And we saw what Jamal Williams did last year. David Montgomery also has the ability to, I think, exceed that. Touchdown variance is a whole nother question. But, you know, in terms of just production, I think Montgomery is going to outproduce Jamal Williams. My favorite signing, I'm going to head all the way over to the AFC West, and I want to talk about someone who's kind of off the radar right now, but I love the signing, love the opportunity, and that's going to be Samaje Perine.
Oh, that's a good,
that's a very good one, Billy.
That was going to be my next one I was going to bring up. I was like, oh, that's a good one. Go ahead, Billy. That's a good one.
I'm stealing it. So Javonte Williams coming off, a big major knee injury, not going to be ready in time for week 1. My question is, what week is he going to be ready? Is that week 4? Is it week 5? Is it week 6? We don't know. Is he a PUP candidate? There's a lot of uncertainty right now surrounding Javonte Williams. If everything's said and done, we knew he was healthy, this would not be a conversation we were having today. But the reality is that Javonte Williams is not healthy, and he's having complications with that knee. So that opens the door up for Samaje Perine, who also was at times playing better than Joe Mixon inside the Bengals offense. You take a look at
being nice, Billy. He played better than the entire damn year.
For the most part. I mean, yes,
the entire year.
So the ability that he brings to this team, not only as someone who's going to be able to run between the tackles, but also someone who can also catch passes, be involved inside the passing game, and also pass block. I think he's going to be on the field quite a bit. When I first ran my projections, I'm not going to say where he came out in my rankings because I was like, oh, I'm a little bullish on Perine. And so I went through and kind of tempered expectations and reduced some of the numbers. But when I first ran the numbers, he actually came in inside of a top 24 running back.
Love it.
And so I went back.
He's an RB4 right now in best ball drafts. I mean, he's free.
I went back through and reran it. He ended up in like the high 30s. It looks like some of the updates that Dario ran right now, he's down to like 45, but he's going to get back into the like 35, 36 range in my rankings probably by the end of the week.
You're going to make me look and see where I've got him. I have him as an RB3, but God darn it, I don't want to give you the wrong number here. I've got him as RB31 right now in my ranks.
See that, and I'm fine with that. And so I think this is going to be a good conversation.
That's still way ahead of consensus because he's in the 40s right now. He is. Last time I looked, he had gone from like RB48 when I wrote up an ADP best ball risers article for Fantasy Pros, and he was at the time of writing this article. And the funny thing is, like when I pulled ADPs to start the framework for this article, I had to go back and every one of these guys they're starting to already creep up, and I'm like, we got to get this thing published, baby. It's got to get out there. He was RB44, and he's up to RB42 right now.
Love it.
I think you guys hit the nail on the head with your ranking of him, and it doesn't have to be where he finishes. I think it's points per game. He will be a running back too. We just haven't seen Samaje Perine be able to take the beating as an NFL pro where he's seeing a high volume role every single week. But I think if he gives you, 13 starts, 12 starts, I think he's going to put up RB2 points per game numbers. I think it'll be very useful. And I'll just piggyback off of Dbro's David Montgomery pick. I think that it's kind of like the 7 stages of grief for DeAndre Swift fantasy managers, but it's like we're trying to talk ourselves into, hey, it's okay because David Montgomery is just going to be the Jamal Williams role and we're going to catch all these passes. But David Montgomery has always been an efficient pass catcher, and last year Chicago, their volume was way down passing wise, but he actually had his highest yards per catch of his entire career. And the Detroit offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, is one of these smartest guys in the room, like for real guy, not like a fake one. Like he's a real sharp, and he maximizes his players he has on the field. And I think he's going to find a way. He's not going to let defenses, have predictability where David Montgomery's in, we're running the ball, DeAndre Swift in, we're passing the ball. You're going to see David Montgomery used in creative ways in the passing game. He's going to get 30 plus receptions. And I think that'll propel him to, potentially high RB2 numbers. One guy that I think is interesting is Jamal Williams. When you watched his introductory press conference, he's got the swag of a guy who's got a big ass role. This is not a guy that's coming in to, slot behind Kamara. I think that there's internal belief that Kamara's suspension will be a very long one. Jamal Williams, I think, is going to end up being a very effective player. Again, I don't think he's some fantastic talent, but he has tremendous attitude. He's very efficient, and we know he can find the end zone. And he also showed earlier in his career that he can catch the ball. So I think that he'll be a big part of the Saints attack. His ADP and situation kind of reminds me of 2021 James Conner, where James Conner was kind of under the radar and ends up being an RB1 based on situation, and he just sort of ran with it. So I'm definitely excited. Anything to add on those guys?
Theo, I'm loving it. You're literally reading off the script of guys that I have in my ADP Risers article. Like Jamal Williams, right above Samaje Perine. He's at RB 35. I love that call, man. And that's why, I love doing drafts this time of year, because the ADP is so fantastic. To just go with, to experiment with a lot of different builds. But right now, all these guys we're talking about, this is why you can just lean into 0 RB, dude. David Montgomery, you're not spending up for. Jamal Williams, you're not spending up for. Samaje Perine, you're not spending up for. See a trend here? There are so many good running backs that are not just okay, one injury away, but they're going to have a standalone role from week 1. And that role could easily grow based off of one thing of news. Not even oh, this guy needs to be injured or whatever. It's okay, Javonte Williams starts on the pup. There you go. Samaje Perine. Pew! Alvin Kamara suspension gets announced. As soon as that gets announced, he's going to be a top 24 running back, period. So draft him now. These are not hard narratives and things to see. One thing happens and you will never see that ADP again.
I love this time of year. Even start drafting. I usually start drafting around the Super Bowl, and it's always the Wild West because there is no ADP. At least now in March, there's some sort of consensus. But when you're drafting in Super Bowl time, people are going draft to draft, 4 rounds different, 5 rounds different, because people are trying to figure out where they're going. But you can build some monster squads right now. You looking back at some of the FFPC teams I drafted last year in the Never Too Early Best Ball tournament, everything said and done, I had 5 picks inside the top 3 rounds at the end of August ADP in the early best ball tournament because everybody moved up. It was Michael Pittman that moved all the way up once the signing happened. It was Mike Williams who moved up when he re-signed with the Chargers, right? You're able to take a look and take gambles on situations and scenarios. And if you bet on the player rather than the landing spot, and the talent eventually is going to shine through, or you look at what Derek just said, the suspension or whatever it may be, there's always going to be a situation early in drafts that are going to drastically affect ADP. And if you can capitalize on that, you're going to make a lot of money.
It's the easy thing of, okay, all we need is one piece of news, not massive news. Or if you're diving into the rookie well, all they have to do is get drafted. Zach Charbonnet is an RB3 right now. And if he goes in the second round, he's going up. These are not hard things to understand. But again, that's why we draft early.
Well, there's certain fantasy managers who never want any kind of uncertainty. And those kind of fantasy managers usually do not win very big.
That's usually the ones that are bottom 4 in their leagues.
And I'll throw out
always sixth.
One guy we didn't talk about, guys, but I'll throw out a non-show sheet question. Who scores more running back fantasy points for the Chicago Bears this season? Deonta Foreman or Khalil Herbert? Because I'm on that Foreman train. There's one guy we didn't talk about, but I'm very excited about D'Onta Foreman in that offense at a discount. It scares me a lot for, people who've been drafting a lot of Khalil Herbert. Where are you at on that one? Start with Billy.
Go to Derek Brown so I look for a boo soundbite in the meantime so I can boo you. I am all on the Herbert train here.
All on Herbert. There you
go. Okay. I will go. This is a really good question, man.
Go ahead. I'm looking for that. I'm seriously looking for
I'll
that.
go Herbert. And the reason I'm going to go Herbert is because both of these guys were pretty efficient last year. Depending on what elusivity metrics, tackle breaking metrics you look at, both these guys graded out really high. The reason I'm going to lean Khalil Herbert is because I think that if you're looking at how to project this backfield, what guy can do more with less? And that comes down to Khalil Herbert. Like, could you see, put it this way, which one of these guys, if you give 10 carries to both of them, has the chance to bust off a long run or get you 70 in a score versus D'Onta Foreman is a volume back to me. He needs massive volume to kind of like hit those high-end parts of his range of outcomes, where Khalil Herbert, we've already seen him do it. Like, we've already seen him pop off with usable games in a split backfield last year. If his opportunity share goes up just a little bit or a good bit, we could see even more things, but he doesn't need the 20 carries a game to really pay off as opposed to somebody like D'Onta Foreman.
Billy, before you cook,
Dbro said it. Who are you on again, Theo? Was it Herbert?
Or so tell me if you tell me that I can have. If you could tell me I can have. If you could tell me I can have one or the other, I'm taking Khalil Herbert. But Billy, right now, Khalil Herbert's going to go somewhere between running back 28, running back 30, and D'Onta Foreman is down below running back 45. So I think
earlier you mentioned that you were on, who was it? What was the running back's name?
I am on Foreman at cost.
I found it in time. I wanted to use it. Thank you. It is cost. Okay. When you rephrase it that way, knowing the boo is coming, it makes sense.
At cost. But we're all at cost with.
I didn't hear at cost the first time.
Now he throws out.
I didn't hear that last time. Did you hear that, Billy? I didn't hear that. No,
it's funny. It's funny how that changed after the boo.
I can draft.
We didn't read the fine print, Billy. We didn't read the fine print.
I can draft both in best ball right now because there's such a big gap between both of them. But I will say, if you tell me I'm getting D'Onta Foreman as a low end RB4, which is what he is.
Foreman's FFPC ADP is 123. Herbert is 88.9. Okay, so I still at cost. It's not that big of a difference. I mean, at cost, I still want Herbert. Foreman, I agree everything Derek said. Foreman needs volume. He's not involved in the passing game. He's never eclipsed more than 5% of target share at any point in his career. He's only had 21 targets in the last 3 years combined. Herbert at one point last year before his injury was RB7 in rushing yards before he got hurt. I mean, he is highly efficient. There's a reason why he was on the field when they still had David Montgomery. And Foreman ain't no David Montgomery. And I wasn't a big David Montgomery fan, but at least I can agree that he was highly more effective and efficient than Foreman is. To me, Herbert is not even in the same ballpark as Foreman in terms of skill set at this point in their careers. And Herbert has the ability to take it to the house, get a breakaway run, be heavily involved in all fashions of the offense. It's pretty clearly Herbert, in my opinion. I think Foreman is going to be very dependent upon red zone packages and falling in the end zone and maybe busting out a big run here and there. But it's going to be the opportunity in a poker world, his outs of success are far more limited than Herbert's.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
It's the fantasy football Mandela effect when you ask people how many yards Foreman had last year. Because my man D'Onta Foreman went over 900 yards rushing last year. Don't sleep on D'Onta Foreman, everyone. This remains.
But they didn't have any other running back. They were hurt. I mean, we had injuries with Chuba there, and so they were just running the ball.
Chuba's not good too. Let's throw that out there.
They couldn't throw the ball. They had to run the ball.
Chuba is not good. I will give you that one.
So the biggest, I guess, also, and I'm going to go hand in the dirt here. What's the NFL telling us with D'Onta Foreman? Like, legit, like back-to-back seasons, he's played pretty damn good. Like Tennessee played good. Carolina played good. And yet he's gotten damn near nothing for a contract, like 1 year bleh deals. Like,
He's
I think also
one-dimensional
the
is
other
what
thing
it
is like NFL is telling us like, okay, he's good, but he's easily replaceable is what I'm kind of reading here.
For sure. I want to stay with another kind of choppy question. Who is the Carolina Panthers wide receiver you would most like to roster right now? And do any of those three have a path to like a sneaky wide receiver 3 finish? Start with Dbro on this one. Adam Thielen, DJ Shark, Terrace Marshall.
I got the boo button ready.
Can I say none? Can I?
This
Can
is I will say this is a DJ Shark podcast. Billy is always DJ Shark, so be careful
right.
here, Dbro.
I'm always Terrace Marshall too, though. But
I like Chark for what he is. If I'm gonna take a shot on one of these guys, I'll take a shot in the dark on Terrace Marshall, and I'm gonna take the shot in the dark on Terrace Marshall because we've seen enough of. Welcome. We've seen enough of. All right, we know who Adam Thielen is at this point in his career. He's a declining efficiency. He's a more of a locker room guy, and just we need to add competence around our rookie quarterback. And we know who DJ Chark is. Like, he is a really low end, like number 2 wide receiver, better cast as a wide receiver 3, a field stretcher. Frank Reich can say whatever the hell he wants to about DJ Chark becoming a more complete wide receiver. I heard those same things out of Jacksonville. And it didn't happen. So if I'm going to take a shot on one of these guys, give me Terrace Marshall based off of what we saw down the stretch. He played all of his snaps basically on the perimeter. He had some spike weeks, showed us in singular game samples that he showed us flashes. Like, he had multiple games where he was above like 1.8, 1.9 yards per route run. And to me, I'm like, okay, well, I mean, you're showing us that, like, okay, we don't need to fully bury you. The rookie stuff, you being hurt, was real. They basically shoved you on put you on a shelf, and didn't use you at all. So, based off of what we saw last year, are those things indicative of talent? Maybe not. And looking at this wide receiver room, I'll take the shot in the dark on the guy that we haven't seen the prolonged stretch. And I don't usually go with the mystery box player, but out of these guys, I'll take the mystery box over the 2 known commodities.
I really like your answer on that one. And I will say that this is not a situation we should completely ignore as fantasy managers, because rookie quarterbacks oftentimes have tunnel vision and they get locked on a target. And I think that there is a chance that your Terrace Marshall call is the correct one. And if you're wrong, you're using a late pick on him anyway. It's not going to hurt you, but I think he does have a path. It kind of reminds you a little bit of another former LSU wide receiver who didn't do a whole lot his first year in the league, in DJ Shark, where DJ Shark had that crazy year in Jacksonville where he was like a high-end wide receiver 2 with, YOLO shots down the field to him every single game and a high target share. You could see that with like a CJ Stroud developing a relationship with a younger wide receiver. Billy, share your thoughts on Terrace Marshall.
I like Terrace Marshall. I had really high hopes for him. I think I tempered him a little bit once they added the old Adam Thielen, or as Theo would say, dusted Adam Thielen. DJ Chark definitely is intriguing in this offense. Just don't know if they're going to be able to get him the ball down the field with a rookie quarterback as much you'd like to see it. I think that Chark, from a talent standpoint, is probably at this point the most talented of the 3 receivers, at least from a skill set when you take in speed, height, and everything considered. He's 6'3", 200 pounds. When he came out of college, ran a 4.3 40, so has the ability to get down the field. You hit the nail on the head when you talked about his years at Jacksonville. He was wide receiver 19 that year in fantasy points per game, 14.9. He was like number 2 in air yards that season with 1,452. I was pretty high on Chark last year in this Lions offense. I think I had him ranked as a top 40 receiver. He was on track prior to his injury. He ended up finishing the 70s. It's interesting right now, and you take a look at draft rooms, and you can see, without peeking, and if you know the answer, Theo, because you watched the draft, don't give it away for Derek. Where do you think, what round does the first Carolina Panther get drafted in from receiving option?
Round 10.
Round 16, Adam Thielen was the first receiver off the board. And then 2 picks later.
Thielen's the first one?
Yep. And then
Woof.
2 picks later, DJ Chark. And then 1 whole round later, Terrace Marshall. So you can literally, if you wanted to, you could literally stack all 3 of these guys in a draft. I don't know why you would, but you could.
But don't do it, guys. First class fantasy.
No, don't do that. 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 Don't do
I'm just
that.
saying, if you wanted to, you could, right? We're looking at 1% outcomes here. This could be a 1% outcome.
Billy's like, if you would like to burn your money, please triple stack the Carolina Panthers.
I
baby.
definitely go a little crazy sometimes, but I'm not going this crazy. But you could technically own all 3 of these guys in round 16 and 17, technically, by coming back through and picking these guys 15, 16.
No, but like a back end stack, that's not a bad thing. Like if you go skinny with it, like that's your back end stack. Like I don't hate that.
I wouldn't do all 3, but what I'm saying is that
but
all these
skinny.
guys can be had cheap in drafts is where I'm going with this. And that the market seems to agree that everyone's kind of like, right? What's going to happen with all 3 of these receivers? The one thing I will say is Adam Thielen, despite his dustiness, is always able to find the end zone. So that is, touchdowns are the variances.
Yeah,
you don't want to on
quarterback rapport. Like he's not going to have the Kirk Cousins man van to lean on with that.
True, but I just want to point that out. It's going to take a lot for DJ Chark to consistently get the ball in the field. I think Terrace Marshall has the most upside in this offense, is where I was going with this conversation.
Yeah. I don't disagree at all, man. Like I think that if you're looking at it like, and one other point about Terrace is that if you're looking at a wide receiver room of guys that are showing like basically at their prospective career marks or what they've shown us their entire careers, like look at what's around Terrace. Okay. Aging Adam Thielen, he is not earning targets at a high rate. Hayden Hurst does not earn targets at a high rate. DJ Chark does not earn targets at a high rate. If one of these guys, if Terrace can prove he has talent and can earn targets at a high rate, his target share could surprise us this year too.
So what you're saying is it's Miles Sanders.
Well, guys, for the record, Billy Muzio is recommending a 5-man Carolina stack. He wants you to take CJ Stroud, Miles Sanders, all 3 wide receivers, and he will allow you to do a 6-man stack with Hayden Hurst.
Fuck it, throw the tight end too.
Throw it all in. Mega stack. Guys, I want to start moving a little bit quickly on these next couple ones. Dbro, talk about your love of Jaylen Warren, because I love it as well. And then we're also going to share a perceived handcuff running back that we're high on right now. Dbro, go ahead and cook with Jaylen Warren right now.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I like talented players that show efficiency and earn more volume. Why do people not like that? Like, the fact of it is that Jaylen Warren, with every opportunity that he got last year, he was incredibly efficient. Like, regardless of you're looking at breakaway run rate, you're looking at he was also really good in the passing game, as well as yards created. He was good in all these different facets, basically. And this lines up with his collegiate numbers. He is a guy that should never have gone undrafted. If you look at it, going all the way back to college, the guy was, I put out a tweet like last year at the very beginning of like basically guys to stash on your dynasty rosters and to take shots in best ball. I was there last year. I'm back in again this year. Like, Jaylen Warren has proved he can be efficient. Najee last year struggled. I really think Najee was hurt for most of the year or dealing with things, because after the plate got removed from his shoe, we saw a different Najee Harris. But this is all to say that Jaylen Warren showed that he earned more volume in this offense and that he's a more efficient pass catcher than Najee. This could easily devolve into a committee where you see Jaylen Warren taking passing down snaps away from Najee. And if anything happens to Najee and he gets hurt, Jaylen Warren he should be up there in the premium handcuff tier of running backs. He should be going as an RB4 in drafts. He is not. He is going in the RB5 and 6 range. Like, right now in my ranks, I've got Jaylen Warren as RB42. And this is with rookies included, okay? So, and I can make you an easy case to push him even higher. Like, do I want Jaylen Warren and his upside over Rachaad White? Hell yes. You know, like, there's guys around him where I could push him into the back end RB3 category, because we've already seen him have a standalone role, but his contingent upside, if anything happens to Harris, is not even close to being baked into his ADP at all.
I like that one. And also you saw in the second half of last season, Mike Tomlin talk about getting him more involved by name. He talked up Jaylen Warren. That's sort of a Tomlin guy. And I do think that that the undrafted free agent thing sticks with you. And I think a lot of drafters will, kind of discount Warren as kind of a guy you could push away because of it. I'll throw out another, there's a coaching change on the offensive side of the ball in Washington with Eric Bieniemy taking over. And I think that there's a chance that Antonio Gibson, again, this is a little bit of a kind of an easier one because Brian Robinson is certainly way down in ADP, and he's closer to Antonio Gibson. But I'll take the backup there, the perceived backup, and I think he's a very good value right now. I'm bullish on what Bieniemy can do with Gibson. I think he'll be very efficient on a per-touch basis, and I think he's exactly the kind of explosive player that can take the pressure off of a Sam Howell or a Brissett or whoever's behind center in Washington. Billy, your thoughts on Warren and Gibson, and give us another one that you're interested in.
Well, you stole mine. I was going to use Gibson, so I agree with you on Gibson.
I got you. You got me like 3 times last week. So
no cheering sounder for that one, Billy? No?
Yeah, we did too.
There we go. Theo deserves it. Give him that.
I ran pure on that one. That's great.
Yeah, come on, give him his.
I guess I could go back to the well again and say my pure, but I feel like it's cheating. I can't go back to the well.
That's cheating because he's now a starter. He's a starter.
He's
Billy. Now I'm on the spot. So I agree with everything that he said about Warren. I like Warren as well. I actually looked at my rankings. I was like, why am I so low on him? And realized I didn't have his yards per carry accurate. So I just updated that. It looks like he moved to running back 47. So we're actually we're in line. His expected is like 4.9. I don't think he hits that, but I just moved it to 4.5. It was defaulted to 4 for some reason. So that's now adjusted. I need to go through and look at those, tweak those. Not being able to take Gibson, I think I'm going to go to Kenneth Gainwell. And the debate here is, does he count as a handcuff, right? Because we're looking at the contract that we have with Penny. They're not paying him starter money. Although I think Penny has the ability to be, if not, I'd hate to say this, but I think Penny has the ability to be an RB1 in this league. When you look at his...
That's not crazy at all.
When you look at his efficiency, what he did on the stretch, and I think 2021 was the year, he had a remarkable finish. And health is the only issue with Penny. If this guy could stay healthy and on the field all year round, he has the ability to be possibly the RB1 overall, at least a RB1 in football. I do not expect him to play the entire year healthy, though. So, which is why I love Kenneth Gainwell. Kenneth Gainwell also is a perfect complement, in my opinion, because he's very effective in the passing game. He's explosive, and he's actually utilized highly in the red zone. So I love the opportunity that we're going to see from Gainwell, because I don't think that Sirianni and the Eagles are going to commit to Penny as a true workhorse back like they did 200 plus carries to Miles Sanders. I think we're going to see even more of a rotation between these 3 backs. They have one of the best offensive lines in football. So I love Gainwell in his ADP right now. He is climbing up boards and he continues to climb, but I still think that he's still adequately priced for what his upside entails.
I freaking love Rashad Penny so damn much, man. It's like, I'm willing to even, like, I know his ADP has creeped up since he signed, like in the 90s and the 80s. Like, I'm fine still taking the shot there because it's still not his full upside. Like, I'm with everything you said, Billy. Like, and I don't want to cut Theo off here, but like just a small Penny rant here, man. Like, his over the last
Penny for your
years,
thoughts.
Oh, good Lord. He did not do that. Oh, my gosh. I can't believe you did that. That's bad. Even by my dad joke standards, I still got to call that one out. Like, whoa. Rashad Penny, I have to say this, and I'm not being hyperbolic. His last 2 seasons have been, like, legendary as far as from a tackle breaking perspective. When he has been healthy, you can go all the way back to 2006. He is the only player to finish the season with over 4.5 yards after contact per attempt. That number for everybody out there is stupid good. So, like, when I tweeted out earlier, like when he got signed, Rashad Penny is a dark horse to lead the NFL in rushing. I'm not doing that shit for clicks. Like, that's real. If there is a way where he gets 200 and 202, like 200 carries, 225, 250. He can lead
188
NFL in rushing. Like, I mean, like, seriously, dude, he's that damn good. It's just health. It's just health.
I'll say that our chat is lit today, guys. A shout out to Dan Williamson, one of my co-hosts of the Goat District podcast in the chat, lighting it up. It's great. I wish we could get to more, but we're moving along here, guys. Dbro and Billy, give me your favorite second-year wide receiver at cost. Right now, you know, we've seen for multiple seasons where these second-year wide receivers absolutely crush their ADP. We saw it last year with Devonta Smith, and it happens every single year. Who is your favorite second-year wide receiver at cost, Billy?
Oh man, cost is I missed the cost piece. Of
You can have two. You can have two of these, Billy. You know, there's a number of them that are,
hit
that are
hit
pretty
us
reasonable.
with some ADPs here, Theo. Give us some ADPs on a few guys, or Billy, if y'all have them pulled up, because I think that's a good thought exercise here for the people at home.
Okay, let's start with here we go. I'll pull it up as we're talking about it.
And this is from this is FFPC, correct?
FFPC ADP.
Yep.
So let's start. Garrett Wilson right now is going at 19.6. We have Christian Watson is going 51.4. Drake London is going 49. Even.
Wow.
Olave.
Oh, thank you. I missed Olave.
Yep.
Olave is going as 32.3.
Jamison Williams should be next, probably.
Jamison Williams is going 69.
Okay.
You can't love it just because the number, Theo. You have to like the actual ADP.
The first 69.
I was waiting
joke
for
on
a
the
nice
first
comment or something out of Theo, and it never came, man.
Listen, I thought it. I held back.
We all thought it. I was just waiting for you to say it, though.
Traylon Bergstrom out there, Billy. Throw George
Burks is
Pickens out
89.8. Pickens is 82.4. Jahan Dotson is 91. Let's finish it there.
Okay.
We can throw in Romeo. We can throw in Romeo. For
No.
We don't have to throw in Romeo.
And
Don't do that to the
George
people.
Pickens, Billy. George Pickens is where?
George Pickens was 82.4. Too early.
That's called a trap there, sir.
Okay, so Dbro, would you want to throw your boy Christian Watson out here and hype him up? I mean, this is on brand for you.
I mean, I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for the word go.
You go.
I'm okay. So there's two guys for me. It's going to be Christian Watson as number one. Treylon Burks is number two. Christian, I don't understand this. This comes down to like redraft, FFPC, dynasty, however you want to apply this shit. You go ahead. Christian Watson is mispriced. People are still all up in their feels about like, okay, well, small school, he's raw or whatever, or the fact that they swung and missed and said he was going to suck as a rookie, and they don't want to sit here and bite that apple. Like, he is good. If you look at any one of the metrics, it's going to tell you he's good. He earns targets at a high rate. He is efficient as hell. His yards per route run is fantastic. He was, let me pull this up here. Per ESPN Analytics, Christian Watson, where are you, sir? Oh, he's 14th in open rate. So basically, how often is he getting open? Which, if we're looking at the numbers, is 3 spots ahead of Jamar Chase. Just for context here, people. Christian Watson is a damn alien. He's going to earn targets. I love the guy. If you're looking at it, the only thing that can cap his ceiling is not talent. It is pace of play and that affecting his volume. But here's the thing we don't know for Green Bay. We have only seen a Matt LaFleur offense run with Aaron Rodgers. Now, yes, their passing rates have been top 12 every year. The pace has been bottom 3, so it sucks down the volume. I'm not going to throw it out the window that we could see a Green Bay offense that's run a little bit different. Like, conventional wisdom is going to tell you, okay, it's going to run the same way. We have a different quarterback now. Like, some of these things can get tied to the said quarterback and not just the play caller. So if Green Bay decides they're going to run like a middle of the road paced offense this year, it's going to help Christian Watson. And there's nobody on the depth chart that earns targets right now. Christian Watson is the standalone alpha right now. Like, Romeo Doubs has never been good. He's not good. I'm sorry, people, but you got sucked into the hype. Apologies. But Christian Watson is that damn dude. So, yeah, Christian Watson's my number one. Treylon's number 2. I was not a huge Treylon guy, and I caught 10 types of shit last year for ranking Christian Watson over Treylon Burks. And I'm sorry, like, I'm going to follow my process. I'm not going to follow the echo chamber of social media and Twitter and people saying, well, yeah. Like, look, everything sounds crazy until it freaking happens. And then everybody's like, oh, yeah, well, we should have seen that coming. Last year, I said Jalen Hurts could be a possible MVP candidate. He was a league winner. People are like, oh, there's no way in hell he can't throw the football. And then it happens, and people are like, well, yeah, didn't you see Jalen Hurts going to come down there and do great? Like, it happens every damn year. If you're willing to stick your neck out and follow your process, we all talk about how different ideas are great, but they're not exactly embraced when you say them and you go against the echo chamber. So Treylon Burks being that guy, I'm in on him. I was not in on him last year. His metrics are good enough to where I could see a breakout. I am high on Tim Kelly being the offensive coordinator because the sample size we've seen out of Tim Kelly when he was in Houston, and yes, some of that maybe can tied to Deshaun Watson, but if it's not, Tennessee is going to throw more this year. They're going to throw more this year, and their pace could pick up. Is that something I'm going to write in stone and say it's going to happen? No, but it's not being baked into where Treylon Burks is going right now, and he's the number one option in that offense. Austin Hooper's gone. Nick Westbrook-Akine is not a thing. Kyle Phillips is not a target earner. Hell, he could barely even get on the field last year. Chig is a part-time player. We don't know if he's going to step into a full-time role. I think he can, but still, he's still a move guy. He's probably not going to play when they go into 12 personnel and stuff, or if he's asked to block. That's still a projection. So Treylon Burks, his upside is not being fully baked into his ADP, and the same thing could be said for Christian Watson.
Billy, you go, because I don't want to steal your guy again and do that to you twice in the show. So you go ahead.
No, I'm going against the grain. So go ahead. I'm gonna pick someone we didn't mention.
So I think that there's a couple I really, really like. But I do think that this is a group of players that you want to have exposure to. I think that a number of these guys are going to hit. I think that this is going to go down as a historically very good receiving class. We already saw it, how quickly they broke out as rookies, and I think we continue to see it as sophomores. I'll piggyback a little bit on Dbro. Christian Watson is a unicorn, and I think that it's so easy to kind of discount what he did because of the sample size. But we talk about Jordan Love as starting QB. Again, a guy with less NFL experience. Those guys are more likely to highly target their number one option, have slight tunnel vision for Christian Watson in the passing game. I've heard the Martavis Bryant comparisons, but we never saw Martavis Bryant as like alpha volume. So if we put Martavis Bryant with no target competition around him, with the kind of breakaway speed Christian Watson has, where the Green Bay coaching staff is going to manufacture touches for him, I don't think we've seen the full skill set. Again, he was an FCS guy, so that was his first year again seeing those sort of corners and those sort of defensive backs. I think that he's a different player, but it's sort of like Tyreek Hill, where you see a guy that can run away from NFL defenses at an alarming rate. Watson's very interesting at ADP. And I will say right around him is a guy in Drake London, who I think took a big step to end the season last year. I think we throw out the term alpha often, but Drake London is an alpha. Like he's a big ass tough wide receiver who can win in the red zone. And we started to see him with Desmond Ridder developing a nice chemistry where he was seeing like 9+ targets per game over the last few games of the year last year. He played very young last year as a rookie. I think he could take a really, really big step. So I love those two guys right at the 4-5 turn. And I'll say, I love your Burks call. I think he's a guy that we've talked about a lot. And I do think Jahan Dotson with the new offensive coordinator at 91 is interesting as well. Billy. Or go ahead.
I'll say real fast to you before Billy weighs in here. I love the London call. And he's already proved the concept. Like he was wide receiver 20 over that back half. And he did it with no freaking touchdowns. If he gets into the end zone twice, he's probably a wide receiver 1. And then we're like, well, he's already proved it. And then like there's talk. Tell me this. If he just scored 2 or 3 touchdowns, would we be having an Amon-Ra St. Brown-esque kind of conversation walking into this year where it's like he exploded down the stretch, he earned a shit ton of volume, he scored touchdowns. Can he do it again?
I like both of the guys that you picked. London's actually one of my guys on the player profiler site. If you go under to the right, the staff pick section on the ranks, we got the little finger now. Every analyst gets 3 players they get to pick. Drake London is one of mine. Love his target share. It is involvement in this offense. I think it's going to continue.
Billy, where do you have him ranked?
25 right now, wide receiver.
Okay.
So,
But Billy,
I've
he
got
was
him-
close for you, right? Like Billy, you have him in maybe name a couple guys in his tier, Billy, just to show kind of the confidence you have in him.
Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Tyler Lockett, all kind of in that same area. I think he has the ability to outperform all those guys. I think London is definitely younger, has the ability. If Godwin and Mike Evans had a quarterback other than Baker Mayfield, I would say it's pretty easy to rank them ahead of him. But because of the uncertainty right now, I think London and the target share that he saw, I think is going to be slightly ahead. But it's all very close right there.
I have Drake London as a top 15 wide receiver. I have him ranked extremely aggressively because I want people drafting his ass often.
Yeah, that's so you have him in like the Higgins, Metcalf, Olave range.
I have him hugged up right next to Christian Watson. I want people searching for second and third year wide receivers are awesome bets to make. So I want people drafting them aggressively.
I'm going to throw a curveball because we didn't mention the name, but I gave you guys talked long enough to give me some time to really think about second-year wide receivers. And there's one that people are completely forgetting about, and it's because of health, right? Okay. And that's John Mechie. So John Mechie came into the draft last year. He was drafted at the beginning of the second round, pick 212 to be exact. Came out of Alabama, right? Was very productive inside of his career in Alabama. Had 1,100 receiving yards in 2021, 900 receiving yards in 2020. 3-year career there in Alabama. I definitely think the news out of camp is promising. They're saying he's going to be ready by camp. You look at the rest of this wide receiver core, and it's disgusting, right? They have Chris Moore. They have Noah Brown. They have Robert Woods, who's a shell of himself. The Nico Collins, who's underperformed as well. So John Mechie has every opportunity, if healthy, to take in the number one role in this offense. It's a team who's going to have a rookie quarterback. It's going to be playing from behind. Their defense was kind of hidden last year because everyone ran the ball because they're always up. And so from a metric standpoint, they look better than they were on paper from a defensive standpoint. But this team is going to be playing catch up and consistently throwing the ball. And I think that's going to bode well for John Mechie and his stats if he's healthy.
And we're rooting for John Mechie. It's awesome to see him come back from a health scare like that. Yeah. It'll be very, very cool to see him make a big impact in Houston.
Do you know where he's going right now in drafts in FFPC?
He's got to be buried.
197.9.
Yeah.
I was going to say 18th round. 18th
it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
It's because he's been out and nobody's there's literally not been one positive blurb on him that's gotten traction.
Just from a projection standpoint, and this is probably low in my opinion. This was kind of a conservative number based upon his health and where he stands right now in that timeline. But 11% target share, 64.4 targets, 442 yards and 3 touchdowns roughly. Now, if we knew today that he's healthy and he's going to be in camp and get all the reps of the offense, I think you could bump him up to 14% roughly, right? And I think
I was going to sit here and throw out, I think he's basically a free 90 targets you can add to your team. What would that put him around, Billy? 80 something?
At 14%?
Yeah.
14%.
Live projection updates as we're talking. You love it.
14% would put him at 81.9 targets. It'd put him at 563 yards and almost 4 scores. That would move him in the rankings projections to wide receiver number 69.
Okay. And there's a median, so if he earns targets at a higher rate, you're looking at maybe he gets closer to the mid 90s or the hundreds, and all the projections go up from there. So yeah, I don't disagree at all. I love that call because he's free right now. Nobody's drafting him. So if you're doing some of these large field tournaments and stuff like that, he's a great way to kind of get different with your rosters too.
It's okay. My ownership's already high enough. His ADP can climb now. We can talk about him.
real quick around the horn. Are we in or out on Brandin Cooks at cost as a potential number 2 target in Dallas? Start with Dbro.
What's his ADP right now?
I'm pulling it up for you right now. So his ADP for Cooks right now is 107.4.
Right around wide receiver, Billy.
That's around 9 and 10.
Yeah, wide receiver 45 to 48-ish.
I think that's appropriate. At that spot, I'm in. I'll take him there because
where's he in your rankings?
I'm looking right now. I want to say I have him as a wide receiver 3-4-ish type. I've got Brandin Cooks as wide receiver 45 right now, which is probably a little bit low, but I've got rookies in this and stuff too. So I can make you a really good case for like low end wide receiver 3. I mean, the big thing is that Brandin Cooks still has the juice, man. Like, he was poorly cast by Pep Hamilton last year in a low A dot role. Once they put him back to stretching the field, he was wide receiver 32 over the last few weeks of the season. So he can still get open. Everything says he could still get open. I'm in. As long as he doesn't rise above like probably like wide receiver 36, wide receiver 38 range, I'm in.
Brandin Cooks has been in the league for seems like 30 years, and he's only 29.
Yep.
He was so young coming out of college. I think he's a perfect complement to CeeDee Lamb. He doesn't need to be the number one anymore. Lamb is definitely the superior receiver. He's going to come in and add a necessary piece to this offense. They lose Schultz. They're going to need someone to at least take away some of that, heat from CeeDee Lamb. I think that's a perfect combo. I actually moved Lamb up in my rankings after this happened because of the compliment.
Where do you have Lamb at? Because now I got to know about Lamb.
Lamb, I think I'm at. Let me pull it up real quick. Lamb, I think I'm at 5 or 6. I'm at wide receiver number 5.
Yeah, I've got him there.
It's interesting because we haven't seen Brandin Cooks as a number 2 option since his Rams days. Like, this is it. I think that's it's a really nice scenario for Lamb, and it's also a great scenario for Cooks. I'm slightly bullish on that Dak comeback this year. I don't need to overdraft him, but I think Dak at cost is a nice value. Wanted to we're creeping up here on the hour and a half mark, so we're going to get Dbro out of here pretty soon. But I want to get your thoughts on Cam Akers. Dbro, this is a running back you think is a league winner right now, and then share your thoughts on Akers, and then Billy and I will share our favorite value running back right now.
A guy that is just ridiculously and horribly mispriced. Like, it's all, and I'm not even going to say it's recency bias because Cam Akers balled out towards the stretch run. It's all of the narratives. It's the Achilles. It's all these different things. Like, he's going in the RB3 range, but yet we're looking at a player that was RB6 in weeks 13 through 18 last year. Like, which is basically he's gonna walk right back into the same role that he had. He played 72% of the snaps in 5 of the final 6 games. So you're telling me a guy that, and not only that, like, he showed us over that stretch that he was breaking tackles. He was 21st in yards after contact per attempt. He was 7th in PFF's elusive rating. So he showed you he has the juice. He showed you he has the role on lock. The only thing keeping his ADP down, is the Rams offense, if it's a dumpster fire. Okay, well, yeah, if it's a dumpster fire, it was a dumpster fire last year, and that's what he did. They had freaking, backup guys. Baker Mayfield was playing freaking quarterback, and he was a top 10 back. Like, if Stafford is healthy, Kupp is back, why can't Cam Akers be an RB1? He's already shown us he could do that. What's changed?
You got my eyes open to Akers. For me, and I'm going to go before Billy in case he says them. The best running back value right now is Ramondre Stevenson because he's being treated as an RB2.
I sent him out of here.
We saw.
Billy and I already talked about him on Twitter. I told we were comparing and seeing who we could rank higher.
Billy's all over the Stevenson train, but it's for a good reason. Yes. I think that offense under Bill O'Brien is going to get better. I mean, we saw they lose Myers. They immediately replace him with Juju, and I think they're going to draft a wide receiver in the first round that'll help the whole offense. They replaced Jonnu Smith with Mike Gesicki. I think there's going to be more red zone opportunities for New England. You have Damian Harris out of the way, and I think that there's a little chatter that they're going to draft a running back, but I think even if they do, it'll be a day 3 one. I think Stevenson has a massive role this year. He was 3rd in targets among all running backs last year as a second-year player. He was the only first or second-year player to finish as an RB1 last year.
Preach it, Theo. Preach it.
And I think it's Steven's season in New England.
Mondre time, baby. Hold on. Where do you got him ranked at, Billy?
Number 7, running back 7.
RB3.
That's aggressive, but I like it. I think it's
he has RB1 overall upside, dude.
The only thing,
the RB1
Dbro, I did an article on playerprofiler.com. It was Back to the Future looking for a running back 1 using some historical data and finishes. And Mondre checks a bunch of these boxes
Tons.
for being the RB1 overall. I'm not going to bet on that happening, but he checks a lot of boxes for that.
People would say that's crazy, and I'm like, based off of what? He's hella good in the passing game. Bill showed that he's willing to use him in a workhorse role. We saw that. The offense itself was basically like, you could call that the floor of the Patriots offense last year. It can't get worse than it was last year, period.
I think Dan Williams had a typo. He meant to say that Ramondre Stevenson is the nuts, is what he meant to say.
Yeah, it's okay, Dan.
Yeah, it's okay,
it's
Dan.
fine.
I got you. I
It's
got
okay.
you corrected here.
We got you, man. It's okay.
Yeah. I'm not even going to say another running back because the answer is Ramondre Stevenson. And Theo said everything that we need to say. Ramondre Stevenson is the truth. I do agree, though, that Bill Belichick is the only thing. However, we did see them commit to Ramondre Stevenson last year. And the addition of Robinson is not going to eat into Ramondre Stevenson's
That's Ramondre meat shield, baby.
I think that they brought in Robinson as a pure competition for Pierre Strong. And that's all it is.
I'm not coming down, Cody. I don't give a crap what you say. I'm not coming down. I'm up here, baby.
Cody throwing out the throw up emoji on us, fellas.
The shade, dude. The shade. I'm catching strays from the chat. Come on, Cody.
Dan and Cody in unison. This is one that we're gonna have to continue this later. Dbro,
hold up. Give them the boo. This is the throw up emoji gets the boo.
Do it.
Boo
Yes.
Yes. Cody gets the boo on that one.
There.
That's
throw it up there.
Double boo. This is a record long first class fantasy. This is our longest show ever. Dbro, you've been incredibly generous with your time and your takes were fire as always. Please tell everybody where they can find you, and we're going to run it back with you on another episode in a couple months here because this was really, really a lot of fun today.
I thought we were going for 2 hours here, boys, but Billy apparently has things he's got to go do with projection models and stuff, and he's going to go caress his trophy for about a good 15 minutes in solitude. No, Billy, not on camera. Not on camera. No, that does
we
not
gotta change
happen on camera.
We got to change the rating of the show now, Billy. And
I know.
YouTube's
No, Billy, this is how the show goes off the rails. This is not right, Billy. Come on, you're the director of things now, Billy. Don't do this, Billy. No, man, this is fantastic. I love both you guys. Sharp minds all around. I love this show. I love that y'all are doing this show. Matt Kelly has been making moves. A ton of smart people. Cody, yes, you're included in this. I love you too. But no, man, I thank y'all so much for having me. I knew it was gonna be straight fire on this show. As far as things for FP, we have our Dynasty Draft Kit that is live. Also, if you are heading over to FFPC, head over there, get your action with Roto Underworld, as well as the Fantasy Pros people. We got another contest over there. Check it out. You like $1 million up top. Get into all the FFPC action. I mean, really, it's a fantastic site. It's a great place to play. And we're sitting here laying out, like, this is the keys to the castle as far as ADP and such right now. So, between all of that, I got all my rookie content that is live on Fantasy Pro site. I'm diving, like I said, more into best ball right now. So my ADP Risers article is live. I go through about 15 players that I'm telling you between now and week 1, the closing line value is there to be had. Draft them and draft them now because you're not going to see those ADPs ever again. So that's all the things and stuff I can shamelessly plug, guys. Again, I love y'all to death. This was fantastic.
This was awesome. Billy, when are you going to be on again?
Dario and I go man versus machine today from 6 o'clock Eastern to 7 o'clock Eastern. The debate vote at the community post on YouTube is caught up. He's still down. It's 58-42, but I was crushing him. It was like 75% to 25%. He's made up some ground. So Dario looks like he created about 20 new YouTube accounts and got his votes in.
The burners are real, baby.
Dario's in Colombia right now, just pumping out YouTube accounts to vote for the machine. I'm on to you, Dario. I know what you're doing. So we go live in a couple hours. We're going to do that. And then I'm guesting on Alex Caruso's podcast, and he's coming on mine on Friday on the Dominator. I rotate shows every Friday with Matt Kelly and a guest, Matt Kelly and the guest. So we definitely get a nice hybrid amount of people on the Dominator as well. Always a pleasure to talk football with you, Derek. I love that we don't agree on a lot of things, so we get to have a lot of good radio. It's good back and forth. It's good to eye-opening. I definitely see things in a different light. Helps me look at things in different angles. It's iron sharpens iron. That's it, folks. We're out of here. We'll see you next week on First Class Fantasy.
Hey, you like that video? Be sure to subscribe and activate those alerts so you get notified as soon as new videos drop. And be sure to check out playerprofiler.com. We have all the tools for you to dominate every type of fantasy league. We have a draft kit, Dynasty Deluxe, data analysis, DFS Dominator, and don't forget the player rankings to rule them all.